This is the old windshield to the 1720 Key West. As you can see, there is a lot of crazy and cracking and messed up stuff to it. Here is the new windshield. Let me pop this open and I want to explain a little bit more about this stuff and the problems that you have here and why this does that. And as you can see, there is a massive difference between the two. This is what the new one looks like, and again, this is what the old one looks like. As you can see, there is just a bunch of junk on this one. As you can see, all of the stuff is just messed up. Now, windshields, boat windshields, this is plexiglass. That's what this is made out of. This is plexiglass that is actually bent. We got this from UPD Plastics down in Davie, Florida, and I mean, this looks outstanding. This looks phenomenal. It comes with some washers and stuff like that, so different spacers, and then also a drill bit, so that way we can drill out our actual holes in here, just like this one has the holes. Here's the old holes all drilled out, so I just need to kind of put these up against each other and drill the holes. But I want to talk about, you know, the problem with this. This is plexiglass, and plexiglass is, I mean, you can make these. I'd rather just have them, you know, I'd rather just get one like UPD. I ordered this one. You give them the dimensions, they make it, no problem. It ships right to you. Whereas a lot of people will also try and make them. I've never made one before, so that's why I go ahead and order mine opposed to trying to make it myself. Probably something that I need to learn to do, but I haven't done it. Here is the old one though, and this is the problem that pretty much everybody sees with these windshields, is that if you look at them, you can see all these scratches and all these cracks and all this stuff that's, you know, obviously a problem. That, look at that. I mean, that's just crazy the way that does that. And plexiglass in and of itself does not normally do this until it takes a long time. So this is actually called crazing, and like I said, crazing by itself is going to take a long time to happen, and it's mainly because of direct sunlight and heat. This is like an acrylic panel. I mean, I'm not really sure what the difference in plexiglass and acrylic is. I think plexiglass is just like, maybe like just a type or a brand or something, whereas like acrylic is probably not as translucent too, maybe like the transparency, maybe that's why it's plexiglass. Not really sure the difference between acrylic and plexiglass, but they're basically the same thing to a point. Now, this, if you get this like this and it happens pretty quickly, that's usually because of a chemical reaction of something being sprayed on there. Alcohol or beer or soda pop or sunscreens or certain chemicals in like Windex and stuff like that. Those chemicals will actually create this crazing, and it's basically a heat and stress of the plexiglass or acrylic that makes it do this. Now, as far as something that's most common that I see on boats is that the windshield is usually right here, and usually someone is sitting in front of the windshield. Now, a lot of people love to have the sunscreen that you spray on. So if you're sitting in front of this windshield and you've got your sunscreen and you spray that on your face, all that sunscreen is going behind you, and it's the CFCs or the compressed can fumes or whatever they call them. That is a chemical that reacts with this acrylic or this plexiglass that makes it do this, and it'll make it do it pretty quickly, opposed to, you know, taking a long time based on sun exposure and stuff like that. Now, when it comes to putting stuff like this on, or even working with acrylic in general, there's not a lot of stuff that sticks to acrylic except for an elastomeric. Elastomeric is one of the best things that will stick to acrylic, even though it's probably not, you know, it's not really a permanent bond, just because of the way this material is. It's very hard to get something to stick to it. So if you have an acrylic panel like this, the back of it, you can see it's very hard to get anything to stick to that. 4200, 5200, Life Seal, none of that stuff really sticks to acrylic. The best thing is going to be an elastomeric. And again, that's going to last for a long time, but it's not ever going to be like a permanent seal. Now, when it comes to drilling holes in this, the biggest problem with acrylic or plexiglass is that it gets hot and it will warp. So if you try and just drill these holes out, you have the potential to crack it, and you also have the potential to heat it up to where it will melt this plastic. So using a drill bit like this, they call it a twist bit or whatever you call it, this is probably a harder thing to use than if you have it in a drill press. The best is going to be a step down bit, but that is one of the complications with working with acrylic or a plexiglass, is that you do not want to get this hot. So if you hit it with a step down bit or something like that, what I like to do is dip the bit in water, and that water will keep the bit cool, and you just kind of go in and out, in and out, in and out, in order to not heat the plexiglass up and melt it, which is, I'll probably show you when we drill the holes in this on the video when we put everything in together. And one last thing that I would mention that you should know about when working with acrylic or a plexiglass is that, like we said, nothing really sticks to it. So if you need to bond two pieces together, you need something like a JB Weld plastic welder, or you need a Tap Plastics poly weld, or you will use a solvent, which is, I think, like Weld-On is one of the companies that makes it, and you scratch up one of the surfaces of the acrylic and then you put the two together, so that way whenever you put them together you use the solvent and it puts it together, and that solvent will get in between the two pieces, and I guess there's a chemical reaction that happens to where it bonds the two materials together. It's like if you put acetone or something like that on this, if you put that stuff on there, it can melt it. So if you like heat up this edge, it you'll melt it basically, and that chemical, that solvent, depending on what you use, it will bond the two surfaces together, and that's how you're going to bond them together. And then the last thing that I will say when working with this, like I just mentioned with the fire, is if you want to get a nice clean edge like this on the side, if you do cut this yourself, the best way is to use some heat, and you will heat this up, and I think they call it heat treating or flame treating or something like that, where when you heat it up it basically melts it, but you can't get it too hot. Obviously if you get it too hot, then it's going to be bad. But if you cut this edge and it has a little bit of a rough edge, you can heat it up, that will smooth itself out. Again, you cannot get it too hot or you will ruin the piece.